Welcome back to Learn Oikonomia. Today we are going to discuss the answer to the question, why are gas prices too high? So let's answer this right here. We could find that the gas prices is being influenced by several factors, and all these factors would be having its role when it comes to influencing the prices of the very same. So let's analyze which all are these factors and how are all these factors influencing the gas prices. Moving to the first factor, we could find that crude oil prices. How is crude oil price influencing the gas price? We could find that when it comes to gasoline, this is being derived from crude oil. So when you process this particular crude oil, you will be getting several materials, and gasoline is actually one among such materials. And changes in crude oil price would definitely that would affect the gas price. So what happens here is that just think about the demand in the international market, or we call it as the global demand. When we have changes in this global demand, it will definitely influence the crude oil prices. If there is less supply and more demand, definitely then the crude oil prices would be increasing, and that would definitely influence the prices of the gasoline. So, along with global demand, several other factors like supply disruption would be influencing crude oil prices. If there is any supply disruption or something called supply shock, which would be influencing the quantity of supply, or you call this as a problematic situation because the supply won't be sufficient enough to meet the demand. So in that case also, the crude oil prices would be increasing. Geopolitical tensions too would be influencing the crude oil prices. If there is such tensions like what you had recently in the form of Russia-Ukraine war, this too would be influencing the crude oil prices. The crude oil price would be increasing if one of the countries that is involved in war is a prominent supplier of oil to the rest of the world. Definitely then OPEC decision would influence crude oil prices. This is the Organization for Petroleum Exporting Countries. So these countries would be having more rich abundance of petrol in its underground, and it would be producing much more petrol and would be exporting the same, and these countries would be receiving so much of income from its export of petrol. So OPEC nations would be making their decision, that too would be influencing the petrol prices. Second point here is called tax. So when we consider tax, we need to consider the differences of variation with respect to different regions. So when we say regions, we can just say it is nations because we deal with international trade. It's not like a internal or domestic trade that would be considered in this context. So various nations would be having various different tax rates, or you call it as, it's all about variations or diversity that you are dealing with when we consider the tax rate imposed by different nations on crude or gasoline. So if it is gasoline, which is a direct product that you can consider here, most of the nation would be having taxes imposed on gasoline. Some nations would be imposing high tax, whereas some other nations would be imposing low tax. If the tax is high, definitely the price of the crude would be high. Or if the tax is high on gasoline, definitely the price of gasoline would be more, and vice versa. Next, refining and distribution cost. So we already told that when it comes to gasoline or some other materials which would be derived from crude oil. Crude oil is the main source from which all these products are being extracted. So the process of refining crude oil, this is a tedious task, and this would make use of several components. So the process of refining crude oil into usable gasoline definitely would involve several types of costs, because we require a lot many processes here like refining, transportation, marketing, and so on. So in each and every level here, what would happen if the cost is rising? What would happen if refining cost is high? What would happen if marketing cost is high? Whatever, if some disturbance is there with respect to marketing. So all these disruptions would definitely influence the cost. If there is some disruption, or you call it as some difficulties, cost would be increasing, and that will definitely increase the gas price too. Now, market speculation. Investors as well as traders would be looking at various factors that would be influencing the gasoline prices. So you will be having various indicators available in the market. You will be having weather events, you will be having political developments, etc. etc. So what happens here is that the future of gasoline prices would be depending on these factors. Definitely, when we have changes in any of these factors, that would get its reflection in gasoline prices too. So if it has a favorable effect, gasoline prices will be coming down. With this is something that you can consider with respect to the buyers, because as far as buyers are concerned, it's always better to have a fall in gasoline price. But what about the sellers case? Always sellers would like to have high price in gasoline, because if they get more, if they are getting more, they prefer that, isn't it? So there have been several factors in the market. So you need to consider the demand for the product and the supply for the product, and try to see whether which demand is more or supply is more. If it is something like an equality that you can have here, it's well and better, because you will be having an equilibrium where you won't be hurting either the suppliers or the demanders. But if demand is more, definitely the people who demand would be suffering from high price. If the supply is more, then definitely the people who supply the commodity would suffer from low price. So this is how it happens. Now, seasonal demand. You need to understand that seasonal factors too play an important role here. So there are variations that you have to consider here, because season is not like all throughout the same. During summer, you will be traveling, yes, because there are holidays. Summer holidays are available, and during summer travel seasons or holidays, or during such kind of events, or during such kind of season, what happens is that since you are traveling more, you demand more gasoline, right? Your demand for the commodity is increasing. So what happens here, when demand increases, of course the price would be pushed up, isn't it? So the price too would get influence here. The price would experience an upward pressure, and here you need to understand that in most of the instances, what happens is it is not the only single factor that would be influencing the price of gasoline. It is not like that. Usually, it would be a combination of factors that would be influencing gasoline price at a point of time. So, we need to understand that we are living in a complex world, and we need to take into consideration the simultaneous occurrence and changing of these factors, where we have to take into consideration the dynamic aspects too, because the intertemporal aspects too would be influencing whatever decision some OPEC countries would take today would influence the price of the gasoline tomorrow. So this too would be something that you need to take into consideration when you consider the factors that would be driving up the prices of gasoline. So that was all for today. Thank you for watching. You can like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more videos. You can also join our free Telegram community. I'll be providing the link of the same in the description box. Also, you can download the Learn Oikonomia app, for which also I'll be providing the link in the description box. That's it. Thank you.